welcome back to my channel. This week we're going to continue our discussion on narcissistic abuse. This is part 3 and the final chapter. I think today we can wrap everything up. I'm going to go more into talking about the definitions and giving a full description of what the language around narcissistic abuse, go into a little bit of that, and then go into the healing process of how to heal from encountering someone with narcissistic abuse or having gone through a relationship as such. So let's jump into today's segment. So the effects of emotional abuse by malignant narcissists. Trauma bonding, we mentioned that in a few of the segments. So I want to go more into what that really means, right? So trauma bonding means, it refers to the powerful bond between abuser and the abused, thus resulting in the profound difficulty for the survivor to leave the relationship. So someone can get addicted to the toxicity. Someone who's vulnerable and someone who's an empath, like we said, someone who's going through their own trauma or trying to recover from their own trauma, can get addicted to someone with those toxic traits. They think that's normal. They think, nothing else isn't going to excite them. Another relationship might seem boring to them. So this is actually something they're addicted to in some way or another, even though they hate it. And then the abuser is, because of his own trauma, is why he's doing these things. So you guys are both bonded together, and it becomes this toxic, dysfunctional cycle. It can happen forever, decades, if someone doesn't realize to pull away and stop the cycle. The next one is learned helplessness, Stockholm syndrome. Some of you guys may have heard that terminology. That is being so bonded to the narcissist that it's almost psychologically impossible to leave, because the target has been brainwashed to believe he or she cannot psychologically survive without him or her. A target is simultaneously hates her tormentor, his or her tormentor, and loves the man that she thought he was in the beginning. These confusing states of mind create heightened anxiety, depression, self-doubt, profound energy depletion, and a literal emotional paralysis that renders the target shackled to the relationship. So that is emotional bondage. Someone cannot see themselves outside of this person, even though they know this person is bad for them, this person is toxic for them. The abuser has done such a good job at psychologically conditioning and manipulating that person so much that they're a shell of who they are. They're a shell of who they could have been. So this is what I talk about, the emotional vampire, and why it's so important to break away from someone like this sooner rather than later. The next terminology you guys heard is cognitive dissonance. What is cognitive dissonance? The target is rendered utterly confused when he or she is gaslighted chronically. Basically, the survivor waffles back and forth between missing the seduction phase of the relationship and then spins back to the reality that he or she has been emotionally abused in the most insidious way and covert manner. A trauma bond has formed, whereby the survivor has a difficult time breaking the bond with his or her abuser, because again, they're addicted to the love bomb stage, the stage when times were good, the false self of the narcissist. They've become addicted to that, and it's hard for them to accept that this is not who this person really is. With cognitive dissonance, there is chronic state of confusion in which the target doubts his or her own logic or perception of the reality around them. They're questioning what's real, what's not real. Sometimes, wishing on a star that the real part is not the false part. So coming to their own terms with the grief of the relationship that they thought they had. The target holds two opposing thoughts at the same time, namely, I am in love with this amazing person, And how could I be so in love with someone who abuses me? The result is a dizzying sensation of spiraling into self-doubt and numbness. The next terminology is complex PTSD. Someone who suffered with someone who was abusing them in these types of relationships, they can develop complex PTSD, which is PTSD in the most complex form. So it's a result of chronic ongoing trauma. It can include the person feeling numb, having avoidance behavior, they're hypervigilant, they have chronic depression and anxiety, panic attacks, flashbacks of abuse of the incidents, disassociation, depersonalization, derealization. Those are all when a person feels out of body experiences, feel like they're not even here, feel like they're looking at themselves. They've out of body experience where they're looking down at them in the situation. Can you imagine, someone in so much turmoil and stress? Complex PTSD impacts functionings in relationships, work, and day-to-day activities. It requires psychotherapy with a highly skilled therapist. This condition is basically post-traumatic stress disorder that occurs over a long period of time and exposure to the repeated trauma. What to do? What do you do for a narcissist? How are they using you? Simply put, if you are a narcissistic supply for someone, you are the fuel that feeds that person's ego and reinforces their narcissism. So pretty much think this narcissist would be such an empty shell, empty vessel, so miserable if they didn't, well, they are miserable regardless, but they would be so displaced because they wouldn't have any supply. They wouldn't have anyone there to abuse, to entertain them, to feed their ego. So which is why not allowing these people to utilize you as supply is the best form of empowerment and vengeance in some ways, right? Utilize that anger with zero contact. Okay, the main goal is to protect yourself. This is a harsh reality for people who must come to the realization that the individual they love really does not love them in any deep sense. The target is truly just that, a target, who is used to fluff the feathers of the peacock, which is the narcissist. A narcissist cannot function without narcissistic supply. Think about that. The narcissistic supply is what fuels the narcissist's ego and enables the narcissist to somehow precariously assemble a mosaic of an identity from the extracted reactions of people and circumstances that elevate the ego. Again, the former target is like a used appliance, discarded and no longer of use. The new appliance is shinier, newer, and different. Always a larger hit of narcissistic supply. But if you were once narcissistic supply, you will always be narcissistic supply if you allow it. Narcissists put their former narcissist supply on the shelf to tap, if made available, in the future, should their new supply fall short of perfection, which inevitably they always do, because they burn people out so much. They're always looking for the next thing because they're empty shells, empty vessels. Healing from narcissistic abuse. Targets of narcissists sometimes don't know what's hit them until long after severe emotional abuse has occurred. The very nature of narcissistic abuse is insidious. It creeps up on someone until they suddenly realize that the person that they fell in love with is really just an illusion. The target fell in love with a mirage, a false persona. So the target must grieve not only for the loss of the relationship, but also the loss of the person they were in love with. Most survivors are depressed, anxious, traumatized, and completely exhausted when a narcissist has abused them emotionally. They need to connect with reality testing, having validation for the reality of the abuse sustained. Because the narcissist has done such a good job of making them feel like they're the fault, they're not good enough, they're to blame. Their thoughts didn't matter, their feelings didn't matter. So eventually they start to become and believe that. So having to come down from that and work through that with a skilled therapist and positive support system to help validate your experience and your emotions, that's what needs to happen to help with the healing process. A psychotherapist can help narrate the story of the abuse, own the feelings associated with the loss of the illusion or mirage of a relationship with the narcissist, and diffuse any cognitive dissonance resulting from emotional abuse. Psychotherapy with a skilled, trained therapist should provide the necessary grief, trauma work required for a survivor to heal. So it's very important to seek mental health treatment from recovering from someone with this disorder, because it's gonna take a lot of work, a lot of commitment and dedication, and the right guidance to help you recreate your identity, your sense of self, and create the new self of who you were meant to be outside of this relationship. From survivor to thriver, tips for stepping away from an abusive relationship. My favorite, which is what I tell everyone, which is what I mentioned in the other videos, is to go no contact. You are not going to feed their ego. You are no longer going to be accessible for them, because they need you for that. Otherwise, they'll find someone else, right? So if you go no contact, you're breaking that trauma cycle, and you're not opening the door for you to become victim again. So you're taking your power back. You're creating a sense of well-being for yourself, not having that, toxicity, and pulling you back into that vortex. So going no contact is recommended for all people in recovery from narcissistic abuse. It may be very difficult at first. It's like coming off heroin. It's like a drug, you're addicted to that. After detox, like dopamine high with trauma bond, breaking the bond is chemically painful. Simply put, no contact means ceasing all contact with the narcissist. That means no text, no emails, no phone calls, no contact of any kind. That seems, extreme, but that is the key. And that's where the psychotherapist can also help you with, maintaining your stance, maintaining your boundaries, and sitting in that uncomfortableness, because now you're learning that you have a voice, that your feelings matter, and you're no longer going to be, a victim. You're going to be taking your power back. So you're going to need that person to be coaching you, motivating you, supporting you, picking you up when you're down. Because again, it's like coming off a drug. There's going to be ups and downs, relapses. It can take someone months, years to get away from this cycle, if you're addicted to that cycle. And if that's all you knew, that's all you know, then yeah, you're going to need the patience and the time and the dedication and the commitment. So allowing oneself the time and space to have absolutely no contact with an abuser provides the needed clarity and healing to fully grieve the loss of a false relationship and dissipate the trauma bond with an emotional abuser. Contact equates to emotional pain. You're opening that door again. You're getting pulled back again into that cycle. They're going to start to guilt you. You're going to start to question yourself. Can I do this? Can I be without this person? Are they right all along? I can't. Usually they like to say no one's ever going to love you the way I love you. Of course not, because they're not crazy. They're gonna try to make you feel like, oh, you know, you did this, remind you of things that you did, and just pulling you back. And if you've made a decision where you recognize this is unhealthy, that this person is not well, and it's never going to happen in this relationship, what's the purpose of going back and forth with this person? And you don't owe him or her any explanation. You know, they've had years to make things better, but it didn't happen, so why would it happen now? So why should you continue to waste energy on that? The focus should just be on healing and coming down from this horrific experience. In some cases, a clean break may be possible or appropriate. Limited contact may be needed for like family members, in which I talked about. We talked about co-parenting, working with co-workers and bosses. You know, in those situations, yeah, going no contact is impossible, but it can be limited. It can be very direct, concrete. We're not going around in any circles. We're not going to be playing any games. Factual basis only. So limited contact may be needed for family members living under the same roof, or with ex-partners, or who are co-parenting. The next step is to tell your story. It is important to narrate your story of abuse. Get it out orally or on paper. I encourage some clients to journal, and I encourage some clients to write down the things that they would want to talk to the narcissist about, what questions they may have, you know, any feelings that, you know, they would want to have shared with the narcissist. Put it in the journal. Because yeah, you're gonna have a lot of feelings and thoughts around this, and going no contact is gonna be hard because your brain is not able to say out loud some of the things that you're feeling or some of the questions you're having. Write it in the journal. The narcissist doesn't need to know or hear about it. He's no longer gonna be using you for supply. So you gotta think of it in that sense. Releasing the pain of the experience enables you to acquire mastery of the circumstances and validates the reality of the experience, lessening cognitive dissonance and enabling the survivor's mind to become less preoccupied with intrusive recollections of the abuse. It is important to empower yourself by validating the experience of the abuse. If you wish to write out your story by hand, create a journal or purchase a journal that speaks to you in your healing journey. Releasing the grief. Getting in touch with sadness and anger is critical. Do not stuff your emotions. As a survivor, you need a period of grief. Sadness and anger can be released in healthy ways with a therapist, a trusted friend, confidant on your own. Tears are more than okay. Anger is completely valid. You can utilize that anger by continuing the no contact recommendation. Again, you should be so angry to the point where they should not be able to have any access to you. They need to speak to a third party. They need to speak to an attorney. They need to speak to the cops. They need to speak to whoever, but it's not going to be you. So that is a healthy place to be to protect yourself. But any engagement or opening of door of becoming a supply for them and feeding to that toxicity, that vortex, you're giving them the power and you're taking away from yourself because they don't have empathy. It's all manipulation tactics to get an audience, to get a rise, for you to be miserable, just like they are. And we're not going there. We love ourselves too much, right? So you do not using that anger to shut the door, using that sadness to release the hurt and the pain. And the more that happens, the quicker and easier you're able to move forward, because you're allowing yourself to feel. You're allowing yourself to be human. You're allowing your brain to process information, because our brains are information processing systems. You're doing what you're supposed to do. So don't feel bad about it in any way. Finding ways to productively release pain is essential. So exercising, journaling, allowing yourself to cry, distraction, self-care, hanging out with good friends, good family, taking up a hobby, and just it's time to focus on yourself and doing the things that you love, you want to do. Who are you outside of this relationship or this identity that this person has created for you? Fully grieving the loss of the trauma bond requires no contact or limited contact in some circumstances. Anger is one of the emotions requiring release and not to be feared. Harnessing the power of anger can help generate the assertion of boundaries, which I said, and owning of the survivor's experience of the abuse. Discharging anger in safe ways, such as exercising, self-care. There's Smash House around now, where you can go and smash things and throw things in a safe place. I've been recommending clients to do that. Helps to open up psychological space for moving forward with life in the here and now. Self-care, taking care of yourself via psychotherapy, life coaching, good nutrition, good sleep, exercising, increased social supports, so good friendships, good family supports, people who are healthy around you. Each survivor needs to heal at his or her own pace, which is different for each individual. So like I said, it can take someone months, it can take someone a year, it takes someone 2-3 years. It takes a while, and it's no cookie cutter way for someone to get over this. So just give yourself time, space, and stay committed to no contact and self-care. People who are supporters of survivors may not understand the complex healing from narcissistic abuse. Survivors can feel pressure to be over it sooner than they already are, and that's not the case. So family and friends of anyone like this, please be patient, please be loving and kind and unconditional. Psychoeducation, which is what I'm doing with these videos, watching these types of videos and gaining more insight and awareness as to what this disorder is and how complex it is. Understanding what happened and why it happened. Learning about the terminologies, in which we talked about some of these terminologies in the videos. It lessens the cognitive dissonance and breaks the trauma bond that enables you to connect with emotions of anger and move forward through recovery. Also, you must understand that it's not your fault you experienced narcissistic abuse. The survivor is not to blame. And like I said before, this disorder is really prevalent in society, and more so now than ever. I think it's always been a thing, but it's now more heightened. I don't know, with the social media technology, people are becoming more aware and intelligent around what this means, but a lot of people don't really know what it really means in the abuse cycle and in the abuse pattern, and how serious it is for you to protect yourself. So getting more awareness can help, definitely, for you to know how to survive, continue to survive, because you're going to run into people like this. That's my point. You're going to run into people like this somewhere or another. It's happening really often. So shutting down, not being a source of supply, keep it moving, and be very firm with your boundaries to protect yourself. So below are some journal questions. So we talked about journaling as a way of self-care. So I'm going to read out some questions to get you kind of thinking and started in trying to break away from someone like this, or continuing to stay away from someone like this. So these questions are meant to be a container for emotion, inspiration, releasing of pain, freedom from hurt, and celebration moving forward. So the first question is, do you have no or low contact with your abuser? Why or why not? Number 2, how much can you eliminate contact? Think about that. What can you do to cease or severely limit contact? To distance yourself from pain, to achieve clarity and healing. The third one is, what do you miss most about the narcissist? What do you not miss about the narcissist? What angers you the most about the narcissistic behavior, or worse? What is your new identity as a survivor? Think about that. That's exciting. Who are you now? Who did you want to be before you met the narcissist? Before they tried to plant seeds of doubt and make you lose motivation for your future? What elements do you need to see in a healthy relationship in the future? It's a good thing to think about. I mean, some people can't think about that. They're so hurt. They can't, I don't want to be in any more relationships, but reality is it's going to happen again. So starting to think about what are you looking for in the next relationship? How is that going to be healthy for you? What is that going to look like? What are 3 things you accomplished today and are most proud of? And what are 3 things you are grateful for? So those last 2 questions daily can help you set a good framework for the day and to start on a positive mindset on your new journey of breaking away from the narcissist. So that is all I have for today. Hope you guys enjoyed the video and gain a lot of knowledge and awareness. Feel free to rewatch the videos. I know it's a lot of information. And moving forward, I'll, have other topics. Next week, I'm thinking of talking about depression. There's going to be a video on self-care. There's going to be a video about bipolar. We're also going to talk about borderline personality disorder. That's another one that's kind of closely related to narcissism. So any thoughts, questions, or feedback, or if you want me to do another video specifically for something that you feel that might benefit you, you can leave a comment. And if remember to like and subscribe. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you in the next video.